What's up, chess players? Coach Tae here, and welcome to my Learn to Play Chess Beginner series. This series is about learning the rules and all the chess basics. Subscribe and hope you enjoy. Alright, the first thing is understanding chess notation and how to say each chess square. You will see the letters on the bottom and numbers on the side. So the square that I have highlighted up here is E4. We always say the letter first and then the number after. So it's E4, not 4E. I always joke that 4E sounds like an apartment number and E4 is the notation. That square is A2. So what square would this one be? Yep, G4. Very good. Alright, the first piece we're going to learn today is the pawn. And in chess, the pawn is the weakest piece, but don't ever underestimate the pawn. Pawns only move one square forward. They always move forward and never backwards. Now on their first turn, pawns have the option of moving 2 squares instead of 1, but only on their first turn. After they move 2 squares, they only move 1 square after that. Let's talk about how pawns attack and capture, because it's different from how they move. They capture and attack 1 square diagonally. So here's an example. The 2 pawns are diagonal from each other, so they are attacking each other. So here, white's pawn can capture black's pawn. Only when capturing can pawns move in a diagonal. If they can't capture, then they cannot move in a diagonal. If a pawn is 1 square diagonal from their own piece, then the pawn is protecting that piece or supporting that piece. Here we see 2 pawns attacking each other. White's pawn can capture, or we can support it by moving another pawn. Then black's pawn will capture white's pawn, but we will be able to capture it back because it is supported. Alright, quiz time. So how do we attack this knight on A5? See if you can figure it out. Alright, you move the pawn to B4 and now the pawn is 1 square diagonal from the knight. The pawn is threatening to capture the knight on the next turn. How do we support this pawn on F4 by using another one of our pawns? Yep, you move the pawn to G3 and now the pawn is 1 square diagonal from its own pawn, so it is being supported. Here it is white's turn to move. We have 3 choices. We can capture black's pawn, we can support our own pawn, or we can just push the pawn forward. Try and see which one is the best choice. Here it's clearly best to just capture black's pawn because there's no way that black can capture us back and we win a pawn for free. We capture a pawn for free. When the pawn reaches the opposite end of the board, the pawn promotes or transforms into any piece that you want. One last thing about pawns is something called the en passant rule. And this rule is a little bit tricky, so I'm gonna leave it for another video. But that's it, guys. Thank you for watching. If you wanna support the channel, subscribe. The next piece we're gonna talk about is the bishop. Click on the link above and it'll lead you there.